Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I have been stupid. I have been a fool. Stupid, as Baldric would say. And I owe someone an apology. Aidan de Best. I am sorry for not taking your advice on getting an art program before 3 days ago. Because, yeah, now I'm seeing just how much it could have actually helped over the past 4 years. Almost 4 years. And, yeah, to put people into a situation, I need to go a little bit further back. The main announcement that I have this week is the resignation as an editor of one William YT, also known as William Tube HD. Not the first time we've had one of our editors leave the team, but this one certainly left an impact. William himself is still around, you know. He'll still be hanging out with us, he'll still be possibly doing a few backup voices here and there, possibly, which now that I think about it, I actually do need some backup voices, so I might actually call him about that. Anyway, so, but, and then also just, you know, appearing in your video here or there, or just hanging out in our friend group. Or probably, more likely as well, participating in the odd My Street 5 years later here or there / Gacha review. So, yeah, he's not disappeared, but he felt unmotivated to carry on editing for the Mutant Girl, which I think Aidan also kind of saw coming, because when William decided to take the longest scene in the first episode of the ones that we're remaking for this year, that kind of raised alarm bells with Aidan. And also with me, I'll be perfectly honest, but the difference, of course, I can't exactly be like, oh, well, you know, sorry that you're taking, like, the biggest burden that is currently available for you to do so. You know, I don't trust you to deliver. I'm not going to be like that with someone. If they were to give themselves a challenge, and as long as they keep me, you know, relatively updated on the subject, I'm fine with it. Which, of course, there have been a few editors who haven't kept me updated on anything. And then there's a few that finish in, like, 7 seconds. Once again, Aidan. We'll get back to Aidan's quickfire editing, for better or worse, later on in this Walking Wednesday, because I also want to talk about the Fallen Angels video that came out. But for now, let's actually stay on topic. So, William resigned, and that, of course, put a massive dent on the plans that I had. Because up until this point, I was waiting for the last 2 scenes of episode 4 remake to come through. That being William's and also Emily's. Emily, who I believe said that she only has to export her scene. So, I'm going to remind her to, you know, export that, please. But, yeah, and then William's. So that was what I was waiting on. All the voice actors done their thing. I had done my thing. And in fact, because in the original version, I think between episode 4 and 5 is when... Actually, I was going to say it was when I first watched Taming the Bad Boy. But yeah, it was only after episode 4 came out that I needed anyone to replace Maya as Reina, and thus I met Shorty. So, not quite the same. But yeah, basically, yeah, because I was about to say, because that's the first time I think I did one where it opens up on pretty much the exact same scene as a continuation, to where we left off. So given that, it's actually kind of easy to fuse the episodes together into one, which again, Aiden kind of called, because that's why we're doing 2 episodes this year and not just the one. Because yeah, we fused episodes 2 and 3 because of how short they were. Aiden also suggested that we do 4 and 5 this year, so, you know, to essentially, you know, get ahead and not, and since the remakes that come out once a year, to actually try to improve as much of the show early on as possible. Because yeah, I'm still relatively happy with episode 6 kind of onwards, depends on the bits, but episode 6 onwards is a more comfortable time in the Mutant Girl production, with the exception of episode 8 part 2. That still remains the worst Mutant Girl episode to date, on a production level anyway. But yeah, there's so of course the issue then with William kind of dropping out a bit is that because of all the things that I got delivered, I said, okay, maybe we can do episode 5 this year, because I was considering dropping that because of how long it took for the voice actors to get stuff in for episode 5. In fact, that's still going on. Even the backups that I've tried to actually get around have not actually sent it anything yet, and I've given them about a week to do so. So it really depends. And I also wanted Shorty to really come back and to reprise their debut as Raina, because that's one of the performances they were really disappointed with, being the first one and still during their shy phase. So yeah, very much the case that I wanted to give that opportunity, despite the fact that it delayed everything because Shorty just did not respond forever and ever and ever and ever. Episode 5 also is one where there's way more characters featured than average. At least for season 1 Mutant Girl. Everyone kind of makes an appearance. I mean, or says a line. I know, Liam doesn't, but, you know, Brian does, the same voice actor, who I still need. Empress doesn't either, but, you know, whatever. Yeah, so I thought, okay, let's give this a go. I can do audio relatively easily, and as long as the few people that haven't sent this in yet can hurry up, I might be able to pull this off. But now, of course, I'm stuck with the longest scene of episode 4, which, of course, that's a really bulky one. I've already talked to some people about this. My mum actually asked me, "Oh, can I shorten it down? Can I trim it down for parts and stuff?" And I was like, well, no, not really, because it was already lucky enough that I had a bunch of camera cuts between the other scenes that I could label. They're all super short. So that scene is almost the entire episode, and it needs to exist in its form. It's not quite on the same level as, you know, the big laboratory scene in Mutant Girl, you know, season 2, episode 12. Nothing will compare to the levels of harrowing stress that caused me, probably ever. So so rest assured that will not be an issue. But it does mean that since the remake has now fallen to me in this part, the whole purpose of the remakes was to improve and perfect what I was too naive and unskilled to do at the time. And at the time, my most ambitious visual was in that same scene. Believe it or not, that smashed dresser and mirror that's in the original episode 4, actually, you know, to use a phrase by Emily, it was groundbreaking at the time. Yeah, I don't know, that's how someone would phrase it, but basically, what I mean by that is, back at that point, the Gacha Life props weren't really seen as being moved around a lot. You would put them in a scene, a lot of people would fill that one empty room, like, you know, the almost white void, compared to the actual white void in Gacha Club, but the room that looks like a white void, basically. If you wanted to fill a room with a bunch of junk, essentially. Even 1 or 2 props, they were very hard to move around because you can't really, if you don't have touchscreen, that is, you can't really drag and move them around properly with anything. You just have to click and hope that it falls into place. And that obviously takes out you know, an unofficial layer in Gacha Life, and it was all a hassle. So, green screen the prop, selecting snipping tool, and then just kind of using the snipping tool itself to rub out certain parts and form the debris. To me, at least, that seemed like a pretty decent solution to that problem. But of course, in the 4 years since that idea came about, I haven't really seen reason to, or seen a way to improve on that. That is, until 3 days ago, I was on call with Aiden, and he made an offhand comment about art programs. I can't remember if it was in reference to that Smash Dresser or not, but since William resigned the next day, I said, well, if that's the case, I'm going to since you mentioned FireAlpaca, I'm just going to get that. I'm going to use that to make this. And then Aiden also, because he has FireAlpaca, has had it for years, actually made versions and isolated parts of the mirror itself, and, you know, cracked them and everything. So I was able to actually not only make they put them together for a better cracked mirror effect, but also several frames which I plan to animate at some point, which means that I'm officially going to become a Gacha animator. In fact, I already have, because I've already been playing around with the animation features in FireAlpaca, so yes, that's me, Jacob Butter, Gacha animator. At long last, the term kind of applies to me, because I ran the original series as animations back in the day, because that I thought was going to generate more search results than voice acting, which it still also had, but it didn't fit in the title. And yeah, the reason that was because Gacha Life, of course, had the animated poses, which we no longer have in here, but yeah, apart from the characters blinking, that's really the only animation you kind of get anymore, just because the back and forth sway motion of the hair and other things like that ends up being very choppy if you just clip it in the middle of lines, or if you have to do a change of poses and then that's a whole separate image and etc. Let's do the way that I do it, in which case it's not a whole separate image, it's just that one person. It's less distracting, but even so, still a bit distracting, at least for me. Because yeah, I pour over these things, I notice all the little details, probably because now I've trained myself to look at Gacha from a production standpoint as well as a storytelling one over the past 4 years. So yeah, but of course my own work, I'm always going to notice these kind of things. And the original, in order to improve it in any way, needs that animation, because otherwise, well, I would regret that if I never actually got the chance to remake something, you know, and make it better, and just do the exact same thing again. but also because that first visual, it just kind of cuts away. I used sound effects to cover the fact that I didn't have a way to properly smash the dresser. I suppose I could have used keyframes, but I was less skilled with keyframes back then, so it was more of a risk for me to do so. A risk I was not willing to take at that time. Or maybe I couldn't because of the deadline, I'm not sure. But now I am able to do so. It's still going to look very rough, but it's going to look way more improved than usual. In fact, I could also say that it's going to look a bit more three-dimensional, because I figured out that with Free Transform, a tool that I haven't used in any software since learning Photoshop in year 9 in secondary school. Or was it year 8? Has it been 10 years since I used Free Transform? Well, actually, I took graphics for GCSE, so I guess I would have used it at some point there. But basically, because art programs have been a non-entity in my head ever since leaving secondary school, it really did not occur to me to use that particular thing. And they're like, oh, this can actually morph the corners and such. I could have used that last year with that one image of that one video where, you know, my 63 gameplay, which I adapted anyway because I just cut to a different TV rather than one that's on the opposite side of the room. But yeah, either way, a solution to a problem that I got myself into, and William himself actually recently witnessed, because that was one of the episodes that he looked at during his Gacha review collab with Johnny. So yeah, all of that. But yeah, essentially because of that, surprisingly enough, that's the reason, all these things, FireAlpaca, learning to animate, all the possibilities of the front of the app. I was going to say front facing. That's why I was back in my head. I was thinking I could do front facing Gacha with this. I could do so many other things too. I could actually make better thumbnails myself. The same way that people do custom art thumbnails. I can do something relatively similar, not quite to that same level, because even though I have been using FireAlpaca, I've been using it for image manipulation, so I don't consider myself an artist still. But yeah, Ghosty offered to give me advice as well on FireAlpaca should I need it. And then she taught me how to use Mesh Transform, which helped me even more. So I didn't know that was the thing at all, even from back in the day. So yeah, a lot to reflect on, consider, and just in general think about. And I think Ghosty also said this could be this would signify a permanent change in how the music goal works and how it's created. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of. That's why I had to apologize to Aiden, because this could have been brought about so much sooner. I mean, Monet said that musical doesn't really innovate in terms of its technology, the technology of Gacha anymore, which isn't true, because the very last episode that came out was all about me inventing how to do swim physics. Well, not all about that. And then also, manipulating the camera to actually go behind people. There were a few bits there, not to mention as well custom music. But yeah, compared to back in the day when it was the first to really do voice acting and animated poses other than AFMAO, yeah, it definitely lost that particular edge at the time, which I didn't mind so much. I still have a few bits here and there that I was playing around with personally, like foregrounds and backgrounds in 2020. which, you know, Disney already did in the 30s, but, you know, whatever. Yeah, it has a few bits here and there. But to be honest, yeah, it's one of those things where it's not like I've been able to catch up in any meaningful way. The community has moved on since those days. Kind of like with Lily Trescott. Groundbreaking at the time, but now there's just, you know, everything is so much better in every conceivable way. That's just the natural order of things. But yeah. And yeah, the real surprise for me was, you know, that all these things, as I was trying to say before, everything that I just mentioned is the reason that I am currently not in Crawley this week. Because, yeah, my mum was really worried about me, as mothers are, makes perfect sense. And she said, well, are you going to be able to come to Nan's this week? So they basically go to Crawley and, you know, I'll look after like I normally do. And yeah, I wasn't able to give an answer because because she'd asked that every day, but I wasn't able to give an answer because I didn't know how long things were going to take. I didn't know what was going to happen, what distractions would arise, all of those things. So it was difficult to say. So I wasn't able to give a straight answer until basically like 8 minutes before I started stream, or 10 minutes because I started stream 11 because I started stream 3 minutes late. Yeah. But yeah, she said she didn't want to like add any more stress onto me. And it's not like I've never sacrificed YouTube because, you know, last year around this time I was just focusing on Siren Story for most of my awake hours, and it resulted in not many uploads at all. And I was still doing the streams, but that was really it. Streams on Morgan Wednesday, which I still is most of what I do now. But that's mainly because, you know, watch hours is what performs, and they're also way faster to make and more efficient for me. I mean, compared to the Mutant Girls, certainly. But yeah, it meant that I put season 3 on hold, and there was 5 months, if not more, in between the last episode and this one. I think season 3 started in September, and season 2 ended in January, but I'm also counting the other remake in between those things. So again, March to September, there was nothing with Mutant Girl, and it ate me up inside. I don't like there being massive gaps in between the episode releases, but I prefer that infinitely to the originals, where I was forcing myself to get them out once a month, and that resulted in them having to be remade now. So I want to dedicate the time, and I want to actually do these things as properly as I possibly can. And if that means learning an entirely new program and actually going into the realms of art that I have stayed away from for the past 4 years, then so be it. I'm actually motivated to try this out. So, would I have preferred if William had stayed on? Absolutely. I'm sure that he'd be able to work out how to do the Pops Dresser thing way more easily than I could. But I'm going to make the most of this situation. And that's really all I could ask for. So there's a bunch of other things that have happened this week, like how I returned to the Guardians for Gacha review, how Ghosty and I, you know, ripped Lion Gate to shreds yesterday, also on Gacha review, and I think another one that I did was, not Lily Trescott, was the one that came after that. Oh, Separated Twins. Yeah, all of those I think have been pretty decent reviews to wrap up the month of February. And considering that I thought I lost my list of things to review, at the same time as being asked to not review one series that had, 51 episodes, it was guaranteed I could go back to, as well as having a falling out, as well as another things being deleted. We need a new punching bag show. And Lion Gates is that. By punching bag, I mean we know it's going to be terrible, and you will just get to enjoy us suffer. That's the really important bit. So, there you go. But yeah, so I was going to go back to Fallen Angels at the end, even though I had a nice wrap up with the whole Beast and Girl thing. I was also supposed to do a Fallen Angels scene for episode 6 part 2, which came out yesterday. I was never really able to do anything about that because, well, everything else that was going on. I also got it around the same time that I was searching for a job, so again, I can prioritize sometimes. And it did end up resulting in another example of Aiden's really quick-fire editing. I mentioned this before, but where I keep on trying to see, things to evolve, if even so slightly, Aiden relatively stays within his comfort zone in terms of production. Can't fault him for that too much, especially because now he's working too. But it still means that, we had a relatively empty ballroom that could have been covered with a few sound effects and stuff. And a closer angle to imply there was more people around. There's also a line about carnage being around, but there was no carnage because the ballroom wasn't destroyed during a fight scene, things like that. I won't give away too much because it actually is a really good episode overall, and probably, from what I've seen with the fan reaction, it's one of the most well-received episodes because it is a season climax. It is a mid-season climax, I mean. And yeah, Josh said that it felt like a season finale. And yeah, it kind of does. But at the same time, it still is the mid-season, which means that, the stakes are up once again. And it's resulting in a lot of consequences for both the heroes and the villains. So, if you haven't watched Fallen Angels in some time, or you have, but you've been waiting for this episode, I didn't know that it came out, please check it out. Episode 6, part 2. Go support Aiden. I owe him one because of everything that happened this week. So, that's that. Went on for quite some time. I was supposed to be getting back and I didn't realize I was going to be talking for so long. Didn't know there was that much to talk about, quite honestly. But yeah, a new era of Mutant Girl, a possible one according to Ghosty, I guess would lead me to mention a bunch of things. So, there you go. But either way, please leave a like or dislike because your opinion matters, and subscribe if you've not done so already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.